This book came about for a specific reason. I had been, as many in our age bracket do, in a period of life review. How did I get to be where I was doing the things I was doing professionally, and why? How had um, family circumstances, geography, spiritual paradigms contributed to the work that I do in the world? And that was so transformative. I'm naturally contemplative, so that's something I just do. But this was a conference on time, and the theme was origins and futures. So I started looking at my origin stories, and I realized that I had been haunted by the ancestors most of my professional life. And what I do is ethnography, migration history, oral history, and oral culture. That's where I come from. And it was a way of um, taking stock and trying to understand our own migration experience and the culture from which we came. And so that's what I've devoted my life to. And as I did that, and also in conjunction with the fact that I had trained as a spiritual director. So all of this was about listening, listening deeply, listening in interview situations and listening to myself and listening to other people's kind of sacred stories. That's really what spiritual direction was about. So all of this training in listening has led to a very specific kind of listening. And, for deep desires, deep sense of purpose, and how to align ourselves with what we were meant to be and so meant to do in the world. And so I realized that other women would benefit from this as well. And so I assembled my what I can only call a wisdom circle, older women I knew to be women of head and heart. I wasn't just interested in academics, scholars. I wanted people who I knew to be um, women of learning who had also spent and was influenced by um, a search for truth. So, head and heart, knowledge, but also purposeful knowledge. What was it for? What were we going to do with this? And my own sense of political engagement, which became more evolved and more intentional and more articulated out there. I wanted other women to also reflect on this. And I've been very keen to help provide more caring and nurturing environments for women. I want women to take care of themselves, to examine what they're doing, to not get lost along the way, and to persevere no matter what. I think Mary Oliver's poem, The Journey, is sort of an anthem for women. And I don't know if you know that poem, but go and read it. It's really about venturing out, even as people are giving their bad, their bad advice, family, whoever else, stay here, and to not do that, but also remember what you were meant to do, apart from your family, your community, your, dutifulness, and venture forth, And I think that is so critical. It's especially critical as the environment becomes more hostile to women. And, the great regression, capital G, capital R, that we're all facing right now is a very scary moment. And what we thought we had gained, apparently we haven't gained, and we have to keep fighting. As this was all happening, like in the last couple of years, I guess during the pandemic, I also started to listen to a very interesting, what was her name? Amy McPhee Alabest, who comes from a Mormon tradition. And she had a series of podcasts called Breaking Down Patriarchy. And it was the course in women's history I had never been privileged to attend. And so I started listening to all of that, as I colored my mandalas, uh, and realizing just how the history of women, has been that, having to struggle and fight and things that just seem like we should be able to enjoy elude us still. And the battle is on. And so I think on this Women's History Month this year, we really have to all dedicate ourselves to the unfinished business of the 21st century, as Hillary Rodham Clinton called it. And that's the business of women and girls in the world, all everywhere, and everywhere we all face these challenges of inequity, injustice, oppression, repression, all of it. So really, this is my uh, contribution to that project. And I'd always been a feminist. I come from a sisterhood, four sisters in my family, and a very kind of tyrannical father. And, so we've all experienced this all in our individual ways that we have to fight for ourselves and understand why we have to fight. So these essays come from a range of traditions, faith traditions. We have Zen Buddhists and uh, Jews and Protestants and Catholics. And I was raised Catholic, but became an Episcopalian and an active one, who had also participated in discernment committees for priests, trying to figure out what they were meant to do in the world and whether they were called to the priesthood. So, all of this listening, because when you listen in a circle, especially for women, and it's called the tradition that has no name, it is a way of listening women into leadership. So they start listening to themselves, they start listening to each other, and you raise up leaders that way. And it's a very powerful tool. And Shinoda Bolen, her first name, oh dear, I was just reading her autobiography. Anyway, uh, she talks about, she's written the book called The Millionth Circle. And that is when you have all of these circles, circle after circle after circle, you reach a tipping point, the millionth circle, in which suddenly everything changes and progress is achieved. And so I think working in circles, wisdom circles, women's circles, whatever, is really a powerful tool. And this book may be considered a circle. You calling women to contribute their own life stories and their own thoughts and their own reflections and learning from other people's lives. I ask them to consider how they got to be where they are and what lessons they learned and what lessons they can share. And it comes from women of learning from many different traditions, the humanities, the social sciences, doctors and artists and English professors and folklorists and that sort of thing. So I think it is a powerful and also just entertaining read because some of these stories are really quite incredible. And I so enjoyed. I think this is one of the most enjoyable projects I've ever done. And although I'd been a feminist, I don't think I'd ever specifically put women in any title of any book I'd ever written. So this was kind of a watershed moment. And what I'm doing now is pretty much apart from the work on concentration camps and my father's World War II experience, really going to be the watershed. This is what I'm going to do going forward. It's going to be women's issues and fighting the good fight because I have two daughters and I have a granddaughter, and I think we all need to create a future for them, and for all of us actually, because these issues are not just about women's well-being, it's about human well-being, um, that we owe them finally some real change, equity, you know that they should be able to be professionals and not just mothers and caregivers, that this is not should not just be on our shoulders as it has been for so long, and we've had to be so creative about finding a way to express, our professional ambitions, because we work not just for ourselves. I mean, the most engaged of us, anyways. That this is the well-being of ourselves, our communities, and it just goes beyond. It's not just a private thing. It is a public thing, as we know. The personal is the public and is the political, and so that's how I see it.